Yo guys, what is up? Max here in our Borderlands 3 video, and today we are talking about the 125 Badass Anoint and comparing it to the on-action skill and weapon damage 100 Anoint. Now, I have been working on this video and filming this video for a while now, and it was originally focused on how trash the 125 Anoint is and that you should never ever use it. But I've found some weird mechanics, hidden mechanics, that are in place here with the 125 that actually allows it to be exploitable in some scenarios and trash, never use in other scenarios. So we're going to be talking about that today, guys. If you learned anything new from the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And with that, let's get into it. But that's alright. So I think this anointment is one of the most misunderstood anointments because it doesn't work as you think it would, and for that reason I was originally making the video on why it's trash, and it still is not a good anointment, but there is interesting things you could do with it. So this anointment, on action skill and weapon damage is increased by 100%, doubles your weapon damage, and whatever DPS your weapon is putting out, it basically doubles that as elemental damage. Now, this anointment doesn't work like that, and you'd think it would. You would think that it's basically this anointment, but 125% more instead of 100, but only against badass named and boss enemies. It doesn't work like that, even a little bit. So if you were using this anointment, what actually happens is it creates a new instance of damage that is kinetic. If your weapon is corrosive, shock, fire, radiation, cryo, whatever it is, this 125 more weapon damage deals kinetic damage instead of your actual elemental damage. So your damage from this weapon doesn't change. It's like firing an unanointed weapon into whatever boss or named enemy that you're trying to shoot at. So you don't even get double the damage. It's just your base damage. But it creates a new instance of damage that is based off of your weapon's damage, and that is in kinetic damage. Now, this is horrible because how elemental damage and elemental matching in this game works is if I fire a fire weapon at a flesh enemy, I'm going to get huge bonuses for matching damage. Now, kinetic doesn't get those matching bonuses. So, for example, if I'm to fire a wedding invitation at Graveward, my fire damage is going to do a ton of damage, and my kinetic damage is going to do, like, nothing. So let's show that off for you guys. So, real quick, this is a kind of crappy spec build that I have, but this is the build right now. We're using double fire just because I want to, I don't want any other elements getting in the way. So this is our 125 badass weapon. Proc our action skill, shoot him. So as you can see, I have no reason for doing any kinetic damage. I'm going to be doing 344k fire damage and 75k kinetic. Now, instead of doubling my weapon damage and giving me almost 800 or 700k fire damage, I get 344k fire damage and 75k kinetic. That 75k kinetic is the culmination of my anoint. That is all the damage I'm getting out of my anoint, which sucks. That is stupid, and you shouldn't use this anointment except for some special cases. So now I have the fire anointment, and now look, 639k. That's the 100 ASE that I just switched to. As you can see, pretty much doubling our damage, which is what you want. I'm getting way more damage out of this anointment than I would ever be getting out of the badass anointment, and that is why I originally wanted to show you guys that you should never ever use this anointment except in certain cases. Now, I was trying to show off how terrible the 125 Baddest Anointment was for killing Graveward. If you guys didn't know, the 125 Baddest Anointment doesn't even work against Wotan. Wotan is not considered a named enemy, boss, badass, whatever. So 125 Anointment just straight up doesn't work against him, so you should never use it in that scenario. But let's get into some actual kills of Graveward, or DPS tests, and I'll show you guys why this is so conflicting and confusing for me. So if you guys have watched my previous videos explaining how elemental instancing in this game works and the creation of multiple projectiles off of different damage instances, such as with the recursion, then you know that the more damages that we do, the more different elemental damages that we do, the more amount of projectiles that we can spawn. Now, the weird thing about this 125 Anointment is that it counts as a new damage instance and therefore creates new projectiles on weapons such as the recursion, the hyperfocus, the wagon wheel, the wedding invitation, anything that the carrier, anything that makes multiple projectiles. This counts as a separate damage instance unless you're using it already on a kinetic weapon that would already have kinetic damage. So, for example, we shouldn't be doing any kinetic damage. These are modifiers, once again. Sniper rifle damage, that doesn't matter. So now we're going to shoot at Graveward with these conference calls, and I'll show you guys what I mean. So first off, we've got our 125, which should do a lot less, as we saw, but watch its ricochets. See how the screen was glitching there a little bit? Now let's jump off, and you can kind of tell when a weapon is ricocheting, such as the conference call, because of its damage. And by the way, we're expect to not do a lot of damage right now. I know it hurts me, but I wanted to keep these kills on the lower numbers, or damage on the lower numbers, so that we can see what's happening. So now we've got our 100 ASC, exact same conference call, literally exact same. And you can see that we did basically the same amount of damage, even though we should be outputting way more damage with the 100, and that's because when we're just using all fire, we aren't creating multiple projectiles. It's just the fire damage. So now let's put on radiation, and I'll go for like a full run at Graveward, Braidfart, to see the amount of damage that we can do. Still not going to be a lot, but I just want to show you guys this because I was trying to show off how badly how bad it is to use the 125, and it was confusing me because it wasn't working that bad. Alright, so now we've got our 125 badass on. Let's do this run. So pretty solid damage, and you can see how the multiple projectiles are being created based on kind of like the screen clutter thing that's going on when you shoot at him. Alright, let's use the 100 and then we'll get to wrapping this up because it's different with like kinetic weapons. But if you didn't know that the 125 Baddest Anointment created kinetic damage off of your weapon and was basically trash except for sometimes ricocheting, now you know. I see a lot of players not knowing that, so I wanted to make this video. So that was our 100 damage. As you can tell, even though we should be outputting way more damage with this, and this does way less damage because of the kinetic damage that's not getting boosted, and our weapon damage is getting boosted, the actual ricochets that it's creating are kind of making up for that. Now, against bosses that don't ricochet, that you don't want to, that you don't want the anointment on, like weapons you should not use 125 badass anointment on are things like cutsmans. Cutsmans with 125 badass anointments are trash. Do not use them, because in that scenario you're not getting any ricochets on such as a cutsman, which is a huge bossing weapon, and you're changing your damage to kinetic damage, meaning that you're going to suffer a huge damage penalty and huge damage loss by doing something like that. Now, on any other weapon that doesn't ricochet, that's like a Dahl assault rifle or a Torg sticky or a rocket launcher or anything else that isn't going to be creating multiple projectiles, you should never, ever, ever use 125 badass anointment. I didn't realize that it created multiple projectiles, and that's why it's semi-solid on weapons that have the 125 versus the 100 on ricocheting weapons. So in that scenario, it's okay, but that's kind of a niche scenario. Genuinely, guys, if you have the option to pick between 125 and a 100, always go with the 100. It's a much safer bet, except for its very specific scenarios. And in addition to that, if you have a bonus next to mags 50, the bonus next to mags on a cutsman, on any weapon that you're using that isn't a ricochet weapon, is going to be a lot more damage. So the 125 badass anointment does work in certain scenarios, which I was trying to prove it was trash, but it works only on ricochet weapons. If you have boss killing weapons that you're using that have 125, throw them away. Use 100, use 50, whatever you guys want. If you learned something new from this video, I hope you hit that like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!